Um, this is an opportunity for you to like figure out things on your own, right? So it's kind of like this is kind of Taylor, right? Taylor dovetails right into that article where he's talking about the best way to learn something is to be the teacher, and the best way that a student can learn is to have to teach other students or at least guide other students. This is my way of forcefully kicking you out of the nest and saying you can't listen to me all the time. It's time for you to actually go out and do some of your own research, and then have to present back to the group and hopefully in a competent way what you could figure out. And I'm kind of breaking it down into because earlier this year, well, the last meeting that we had in April, I talked about stability joints versus mobility joints. And this is kind of branching off of that whole presentation of what does it actually mean to be a joint, and then how does that actually work? Does that make sense?
So you said stability joints versus what?
Mobility joints versus stability joints. Hey, Kelby.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Oh my God, you missed so much. Hey, did you get my email back? I can't actually open that Dropbox up under Chuck Jung at Gmail. I have to use a different account.
Okay.
Kelby, where are you now?
I'm at
I'm
home.
with Dylan.
Oh,
Okay,
Kelby. I'm sorry.
yeah. I was curious because last time I saw you, you were thinking about going back east.
Yeah, we still are. We just haven't moved yet.
Okay.
But it looks like you're getting ready to with all the tubs behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you gonna?
Let me know if you want all those videos and what I need to do to get them to you.
Yeah. As long as the people that are featured in them have the tacit approval to allow us to do this, it's fine. I have no problem using those videos. That's why I always grab stuff off of YouTube, because just by being in a public sphere, I don't have to go out and say, "Hey, can I show how crappy you are?" You know what I mean? But if it's a private video, like I don't show very many private videos. If I do, only because I have specific, very specific permission to do that. Otherwise, nobody wants to be, outed. So, all right, cool. So, what did I put in the old email? Uh, so you guys, thank you, Katie, for sharing that link for next Tuesday for the Okemo. I think it's going to be a very interesting webinar. Enough so I almost feel like recording it, even though I know they'll probably do it anyway. But this was an interesting little graphic that popped up on there, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. I'm gonna go find it. This is the one that was in the email. That's an Alpine MA worksheet.
Chuck, are you putting up something on your screen?
Yeah, I gotta find it real quick.
Because I haven't done this for months, and my screen just shows people. I don't have a separate window, and I used to have a separate window.
You only have a separate window?
I only have one window, and I see everybody's face, and that's it. So I got to figure out what's going on my end.
All right, I'm just gonna do it this way. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Now
yeah, there's the graphic.
Okay, now I see it.
Right. I thought this was a very good way to kind of visualize what somebody's performance is going to look like, right?
What's the third one under edge relationship? Is that because you've got too much lead? Am I reading that right?
Could be. It's like the edges are not corresponding. One's edged a little bit less than the other. Could be talking to an A-frame.
Oh, okay. I'm visualizing it wrong. Thinking I'm looking at skis, and I'm just looking at the edge and how it's tipping. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why I like this graphic, because it doesn't talk about the body at all.
Yeah.
It only talks about the outcomes, right? The specific pieces that we're looking for when we're talking about MA. And I like it how it's in a visual way. Comments? No? Nothing?
I'm
mean-
not sure I understand the performance one. I see two. I'm not sure what that's showing, carved versus skidded.
Well, I think
It
it's,
looks just look like a dumbbell to me.
it does. I think it's supposed to be a slide. It's kind of like the turn shape up here. Got small,
Oh,
medium,
like,
large.
okay,
So you
right.
slide back and forth. I think this
Where
one's
are
the
you in
same thing.
relation to being carved or skidded? Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And this
Yeah.
might be slightly alluding to pressure management at the bottom, except that's not completely consistent there.
The spray.
Yeah, the spray, where and where. I've never been a big spray guy, but I think
Yeah,
it's
actually, I'm not sure I understand that long skinny one. It kind of looks like a ski.
It is a ski. They wanted to show you
Oh, where on the
ski.
ski is it?
We're on the
Okay,
ski, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
yeah,
Where in the turn and where on the ski.
okay.
Anyway,
I
thought this
personally
would be
like it as someone who's pardon my interruption there, Gumby, but as someone who's a visual, like I like having this where it's like, okay, you can actually kind of get an idea of, okay, what type of turn shape are we seeing, and having this, it's like, oh, that makes sense, and you can actually see it a little bit easier when I watch videos, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really kind of distilled down to the bare essence of what ski performance is going to look like, right?
Mhm.
And what you're specifically looking for, without having to add in, well, the body's doing this, right? We're not asking the question why yet, right? It's just how.
Mhm.
How are the skis behaving? We got person who's coming down doing relatively Z-shaped turns, maybe with apostrophe shape because they're kind of long finishes. And there's a whole lot of side skidding, and the turn shape is, somewhere between small to medium radius. And here the ski relationship, here is the edge relationship, here is something about the spray. Okay. And then you could start speaking to the why after you got that kind of idea.
Chuck, I like the fact that they took the Z turn and we lumped things together in a Z turn, and they separated out a comma and an apostrophe to where
Yeah.
the turn actually happens. The Z tends to infer it's happening in about the fall line,
Right.
but those skis could crank around before the fall line or after the fall line.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's almost, we see turns, but we see more commas and apostrophes, don't we?
Yep, usually it's at the top of the turn with a very long finish, which
With a
makes it
long
more of a
finish.
comma.
But we also see the flipping of the skis with a skid before they actually start to engage and then take us in a new direction, which would be the apostrophe.
And we see the apostrophe, but with a really long finish.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing that's kind of, you almost need to put tails on the end of some of these because we see long finishes all the time. So, any
And
other
I like
comments?
having the continuums in there,
Yeah.
because there is no one way. It's going to happen, it's going to happen someplace along that continuum to be either more carved or more skidded.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, they didn't even really divide this out into right and left-hand turns.
No,
I like how it's very simple. It's probably level 2 related, but it's still a great guide to kind of look at stuff and kind of teach you to what you're supposed to be looking for. And yes, I'm going to steal it 100%. It's going to be popping up everywhere.
Chuck, I actually think I'm looking at your primary skill MA
Mm-hmm.
sheet, and it's pretty, like yours says, I'm looking at a skier on a blank run,
Right.
right? The skier is making this type of turn. The turns are long, medium, short in size. The turns are G-shaped, J-shaped, C-shaped, whatever.
Right.
So I think it would be kind of interesting to take this and expand it a tiny bit
Yeah.
because I think the visual is super helpful. But you know, you could add a couple more lines in to make a graphic of your sheet.
Yeah.
Make sense?
And that might happen.
Right.
Or Chuck's sheet, this graphic may actually already imply to Chuck's sheet in a simplistic form.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, I hate to say it, Chuck, but once in a while, you and I get a little too wordy once in a while.
No.
No.
No, it's that ski instructor that keeps, it's buried deep inside.
Anyway,
It keeps getting out.
just an observation, and I don't mean to be mean or cruel or anything, just an observation.
No, I mean, this is not mine. I didn't create it. It actually came from the Okemo group. And I think, Mike, you got that email that's got the link to it?
Yeah, I get a direct feed from Okemo now.
Oh, okay, good. So
I even have a couple of guest appearances for those people that video it.
Cool. Wow.
yeah, we talked about it a few times on our RMT calls. All right, cool. So Gordon sent a video. I'm a little disappointed that he's not here to defend himself. But did you guys watch that video too?
That was the hip thing, the hip to the
Yeah.
snow thing. That's nuts. That is nuts. Oh. I mean, I want to try it, but I'd fall like 100 times if I did that first.
Oh, I don't think you would fall nearly as much as you think you would.
Hmm.
But
know.
yeah, I mean, he was still fighting the idea of trying to get less pressure on the inside ski the whole time.
Yeah, I
'Cause
had
his
a
body
clinic.
kept going like this. Go ahead.
I did a clinic with Demelza, Craig,
Uh-huh.
where we did that, of actually putting the hip to the ground to fall.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was awesome. I have a video of it somewhere with her. It was just so much fun. And it really changed the way, certainly, I looked at where the hips go during the turn.
Cool. What were the what were the key things that you remember specifically that you got out of the video? Anyway.
The hip should really be behind your legs.
Yes. But we needed to counterbalance that, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
by
he was struggling with that idea of sitting back. And then he was like, no, we need to counter that with making sure we hinge at the hips too.
And then contract the abs,
And then
right?
contract the abs, right?
Yeah.
So Beg gives you that ability to both angle and rotate over the leg.
let me see if I can find if I still have a copy of that.
They also emphasized the hands being forward. And one of the things I picked up on was when they talked about that inside knee going up, you were really having two different edge angles in there and getting that knee off the snow. So you've got more, I guess, more angulation and less inclination with the lower leg on that inside knee.
Yeah, he was very specific about that, wasn't he? You got to get the
Yeah,
leg
he
out of the
was.
way.
And yeah,
You got to get your leg out of the way.
get it off the snow.
Get off the snow.
Yeah.
Any other things that anybody picked up on those? I don't need to listen to you. No?
I think the overall appearance of that is very dynamic. So what I was questioning and thinking about was, how is dynamic skiing different when we take a look at people or expert skiers, national team, for instance, that are dynamic but don't have their hip on the snow? And
Right.
I didn't contrast it, but those are my thoughts when I was taking a look at it.
Right. Cool.
What we worked on was almost like getting your knee all the way up to your chest
Yeah,
to get the hip on the snow.
I think Tom Gelly likes to describe it as like pistol squats, right? Your ability to go all the way down on one leg while trying to keep the other leg extended.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
So, what else did you guys get out of it? Anything else that you guys I thought there was one thing that was really interesting for me. I've been working on trying to get my leg a hell out of the way for the last couple of years. But the thing that I really liked was that idea of allowing the skis to move away from the center of mass.
Oh,
At the
yeah,
top
yeah.
of the turn. And, that's something that, and that happens, right? That's that over under movement where the skis diverge from the center of mass. Center mass is going this way, and the skis are going this way, and there's a separation that happens between them. And but the key to that is and the question that was posed to me when I brought that up several years ago was, well, how do you get pressure to the outside ski? If you allow the ski to move away from you, how do you get pressure to the outside ski? So it's not necessarily you want the skis to move away from you and keep moving away from you. You want them to start to get on edge so that you can start to engage them as quickly as you can. And I thought, I brought this video up a couple of weeks ago, and it's of Richie Berger, and I thought that was the one thing I really liked about this video here, is how the skis moved away from the center of mass. But he didn't let them get too far, right? He controlled them. He let use the skis to help him incline and to create edging. But at some point in time, he goes, okay, now I gotta pressure him. I gotta land on it.
Chuck, I related that to some of the things I was doing. I was actually teaching this a bit in some of the level 3 clinics where you delay the start of the turn. You let the skis go out away from you before you start thinking about putting any rotary in.
Right.
And you let it sit on an edge, and don't try to force the tip to come around. Just let it start really slow. So it's almost like a delayed top of the turn, and it helps get the skis farther away from you.
Right. Exactly. But the key thing is you can't let them just keep going, right? You have to be able to figure out how to pressure them even though they're moving, the legs are moving.
But as you tip them, they start to turn without rotary. That's the thing that I like.
That's the key, is you don't need a lot of pressure at the top of the turn, right? So
Just
if we go back to him right there, let's go back even further. You go back even further, he doesn't need like a tremendous amount of pressure.
No.
But he's fully extended, right? Even though he came from this position just a second ago, all of a sudden he's fully extended. Now he's like, okay, I can't go out any further. I need to start pressuring the ski. And then how does he do that? Starts to shorten the inside leg. And that puts more pressure to the outside leg and allows him to start bending that ski really early in the turn. And then when we look at, Lenz when he was doing it, there was a little section, right about here, I think, where they were talking about how he was this transition weight release piece. For those of you who don't know Carve, there's actually a metric called transition weight release. And that transition weight release is how much pressure is on the skis in the transition. And if you kind of look at the skis right now, you notice that they've both cambered out, right? Which means there's almost no pressure on them at all. And that's that transition weight release. We're letting go of the pressure, and then it's also lightening the skis. But this is that piece, that same Richie Berger piece where the skis have moved out. He's fully extended. And then he starts to shorten that inside leg to get pressure to the outside ski. And bam, there's the turn. And I think for him, that was the big eureka moment, was how, great. Yeah, he could get the hip to the snow, but he can't get to the hip to the snow unless he gets almost all of his way to the outside ski. And the only way he can do that is to get off of the inside ski as much as humanly possible. Even though I think at this position right here, he's still kind of riding that inside ski just a little bit, right? Just a
So
little
Chuck,
bit.
right there,
Yeah,
you moved it a little bit, but I was trying to focus on that inside knee being high.
right.
And I feel like he's got different edge angle because his inside knee is higher than his outside knee.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
that was a learning for me. I'm like, well, you don't necessarily want the same edge angle because otherwise you can't make this happen.
If you move your knee up at some point in time, you're going to lose the ability to have matching angles.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yep.
Right? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And we watch basically we can watch Tom Gelly doing the same turn, right?
There it is.
There it is, right? You can't,
He's
it's
got- it doesn't-
physiologically impossible not to to have corresponding edges.
Right. So if you look at the skis, though, if you were just looking at the skis, you say, yeah, they're the same edge angle. But when you look at the legs, you're saying no, right? I mean, I can't see in the ski a different edge angle, but I can see it in the legs.
I could see it just slightly, but it's not enough. I mean, to me, it's corresponding, right? I think you're
Yeah.
right. It's corresponding, right? And he gets to that same position, but he's balanced over that outside ski, and then he allows it to release. And it's just, again, it's just beautiful skiing. And it shows in this metric. I thought it was really cool how he holds that pressure in the metric, even though Lenz was kind of doing the same thing, but Lenz was kind of parking and riding the last half of the turn. And it was just showing how more deliberate Tom was with the exit of the turn, where he was able to handle that pressure so much better. So it was really cool. So there's Carve can go ahead and pay me my duty now. I love Carve. I was a little mystified with the metrics that they've kind of chosen the last couple of years, but I'm starting to kind of understand why they're doing what they're doing. I encourage you, if you really are serious about becoming a really good skier, here's a perfect transition. Watch how the legs move away, but he's still got it under control, and he shortens that inside leg early so he can get maximum pressure to get that ski to start bending as soon as he gets on a high edge angle.
I think what's important with this as well, Chuck, is historically on the lower maneuvers, we talk an awful lot about parallel leg shafts. When we start hitting the extremes of these upper level maneuvers, we lose that parallel leg shaft.
Yeah. Because our bodies are built a specific way, right? Even with Richie here, that's corresponding edges, but at some point in time, that leg folds up under, and he has no choice, right? And this is one of the best skiers in the world. Optically, anyway.
I want to ask a question about what was just said.
Sure.
So the parallel leg, that's in the common threads, and it's talking about the lower leg, right?
Lower leg,
The
yes.
lower leg has the same angle on the ankle.
Yes.
So are you saying this? I mean, clearly the upper legs aren't parallel, but they're never going to be parallel. I mean, as long as people are shortening the inside one some. Are his lower legs also not parallel? Does the common thread break down there?
So I would Yeah, let's take that with a little bit of a grain of salt in some ways, okay? Is that like Mike said, when we're working in lower level maneuvers, like basic parallels, these are not basic parallels, right? These are going to be high performance, medium radius turns. And when that happens, that changes the dynamic and the body position changes. So we want parallel legs like this. We also want them parallel this way too. Okay, so it's not just moving an edging option, it's also fore aft
Right.
pressure
It's
and
flexing,
all of
yeah.
those things, right? So we have to, there's a limitation to what the body can do. And when he gets into this position here, that's a very, very strong position for him. If he was going to try to force parallel leg shafts, I think it would probably,
He would boot out on the
he would
inside
boot out
ski.
on the inside ski, right? And a matter of fact, lucky enough, I have Marco Odermatt doing some free skiing. And even when he is, and this is one of the best racers in the world, right? And even when he gets to that transit or just after transition, those legs are not parallel,
Mm-mm.
right? Now he's looking for a little bit different outcome, but this is just him free skiing warming up. And there's still an extreme angles that are being built. Matter of fact, in a lot of ways, he doesn't have a lot of parallel shafts at any point in time, does he?
Chuck, I got a question. When they're doing these turns, my skis are 80 underfoot.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot harder with 80 than it is 65. And are these slalom skis that we're seeing?
Well, he's got, yeah, I'm gonna assume he's riding around on slalom skis. They look awfully short. And Marco is like what? He's 6'3" or something like that. He creates a lot of leverage on those skis.
But at the same time, Michael, you can get really close to a lot of these movement patterns with 80 underfoot. When you get beyond 90 underfoot, let's just say it gets a lot more entertaining for the assessors than it is for you. I'm working on my diplomacy here.
On your diplomacy, did you have
Or
very
lack
many,
thereof.
did you have very many exams this year?
You know, I was slated to do several of them, and we lost people right and left.
No.
So I'm not sure exactly why the numbers were fewer this year, but they were.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
So I'm at the bottom of the pecking order because I'm the rookie in all of this stuff. So naturally, you know, I'm not first up.
Yeah, that's all right. All right, cool. 7:30. Time to look at a skier. Anybody have any questions? We have a chat one here. Hold on. Oh. Did you send it to my email? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Ah, cool. All right, let me, is this a video that you shot, Rebecca?
No, someone else shot it,
Somebody else shot it? Okay.
but that was the clinic that I did with her.
All right, cool.
And I have another thing that she put out. I'll send it to you if I could figure out how.
All right, let me share this one first. Because this is more of that same idea. I mean, how many of you have heard of that we got to get one leg out of the way other than from me? Oop. Oops, there we go.
And when I do that, look what happens to my hips. And they stay stable, and I can keep moving all the way down into my turns. And my hips are stable the whole time. So what you're going to do down here is a hip nudge, leg shorten. Just give it a go. See what happens. Then I can do this. And when I do that, look what happens to my hips. And they stay stable, and I can keep moving all the way down into my turns. And my hips are stable the whole time. So what you're going to do down here is a hip nudge, leg shorten. Just give it a go.
Give it a go.
Notice how there's an ab crunch in there with her demo?
Mm-hmm. Gonna pinch that inside. You know, trying to bring your rib cage down to your pelvis.
I think it quit, Chuck.
Yeah, I quit it. Any other questions on that? Does that make sense? Don't everybody speak up all at once. Perfect.
It's easier said than done is what I'm thinking.
It is very much easier said than done. If you watched the whole video, you notice that Lenz was really struggling with the idea of depressuring the inside ski, because he clearly, you know, he does a lot of, you know, I don't know if you guys watch Stomp It very much. I love his stuff. I watch it all the time. He does a lot of oriented stuff, a lot of jumps and lots of rails and things like that. And that's really kind of how he got his name out there. And, you know, two-footed pressure is kind of important on a lot of those features. So he definitely, that's the reason why I think he was really struggling with that drill, was trying to figure out how to get the pressure to the outside ski as soon as possible. And it was really evident later on when they were doing compare and contrast between them, how Tom is so much more disciplined at it, because I think that's what Tom does all the time. And Len, you know, they have different, they're diverging paths in their professional career, right? Tom's all about the perfect turn, and Lenz is more about how can we do a 360 off of this jump. So I encourage you to watch Stomp It whenever you can. I think they're really, really good. The last year or so, he's really been talking about like carve turning. And I think that's where he was like, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more or get a little bit better at it myself. So really good stuff.
So I just want to say there's a preparatory exercise for that off the snow that I've been doing that I learned. It's a side plank raise, but you're doing that side plank raise with one leg and then using your other as a flex. So you'd have a long leg on the ground and a short leg, you know, flexing up to your chest.
Demo.
It.
Well, I can't do that right now, but I do that as part of my exercise routine.
Okay. I do something similar. It's part of my core work. I do it every other week because I have a different one that I use. On Saturdays I always have like that's the really hardcore day. So I always do core work like 15 minutes. That's kind of like my warm up before my actual workout. But on Saturdays I do either put a slider underneath both feet, and then I do extensions and, you know, pull your legs in and then back out and do that 30 times on each side. And the other one is to kind of do what you were talking about, standing on the leg that's higher, because you're doing a side plank, right? Stand on the leg that's higher and then pull the leg that's underneath you up and in. So it's probably similar to what you're doing. I need to get a better camera one of these days so I can show these things. But yeah, I use that quite a bit to help me and it really attacks, you know, your core part there. So you have to use the outside leg to kind of stabilize and the inside leg to really pull in. And 30 times, trust me, on each side's enough. But I do side planks quite a bit, a ton. Of course, I do a lot of yoga too. So anyway, all right. So we have a skier.
Which one? The one that disappeared or this one?
I'm going to say it's probably the one in the frame. And I said I wanted to do somebody who was a little bit more skilled.
Looks like a really superb skier.
Yeah. So what is the number one problem we have when we run into with somebody who is really, really skilled?
Can't find things to criticize. Sounds like my mother.
Or they might be better than you. I've only had a couple of lessons where I was like, oh crap, this guy's way better than I am. Right? And usually it was bump related. But this is a good skier. So instead of looking at the things that are wrong, because remember, this is not error detection and correction, what are some things that he does really, really well?
Well, he's very good at having a stable upper body and moving his legs under it, I think.
Perfect. Sounds like something from the common threads.
Yes.
He maintains counter from turn to turn.
He does, doesn't he?
More common threads.
More common threads. What else can we pull that might be useful from the common threads?
He maintains edge control.
He maintains his what?
Edge control.
Mm-hmm.
Skis stay parallel throughout the turn, equal
Right.
distance throughout the turn.
Yep.
But if you're staying with common threads, you can say that his feet are entering into the turn or his skis are entering into the turn at the same time.
Yeah. Both skis are guided, steered into the turn. Well.
And the edge angle, or the ankle angle stays fairly consistent through the turns.
Yeah.
Matching angles.
Matching
Yep.
angles. Both
If we
correct.
stay within common threads.
Yeah. Cool. All right. There's only one that we haven't really touched on. Oh, no. I think we hit them all, didn't we? Oh, no. We still have one that we haven't really talked about. Flexion and extension
Yeah,
movement.
we didn't talk about
Legs
flexion,
do
extension,
flex and
direct pressure to the
extend.
outside
Yeah.
ski.
Right. I think that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Although
Pretty good. I mean,
he doesn't have a lot of short leg, long leg, I guess. I mean, compared, I know he's not doing the same stuff the other guys were, but that was really extreme short leg, long leg, and he's not doing that as much.
no, and that might not be the outcome he's looking for, right?
Right.
Right.
Well, if we're still staying in common threads, Chuck,
Mhm.
as I remember, there needs to be the differential leg length. The legs need to be flexing and extending independent of each other, and his are flexing and extending at the same time and together.
They are. And that's the one that, I mean, that was, so we got all the ones that he's doing really, really well. Yeah, he's keeping his upper body really stable for the most part. I don't see like a lot of movement. I don't think he's initiating his turns with his upper body. There is kind of a pretty heavy duty still pole plant, but I don't think it's on there quite long enough to make an effect. He is skiing in and out of counter well. He's a very, very skilled skier that way. But if I was going to be really kind of nitpicky about him, I would say, he struggles a little bit on one side more than the other with that idea of flexion and extension. What I do like is how he waits for the skis to turn him and not him trying to turn the skis, which is, I think, remarkable. But that's not something that we normally see from a lot of folks either, is they tend to try to force the skis to turn. But I think we could be a little bit more deliberate with our ability to have a long leg, short leg.
Hey, Chuck, what were those 6 indicators we have? One of them is keeps the skis on the snow at all times. I think he does well with that one. And I'm drawing a blank. I don't remember all of those. Flex and extend independently. I heard that was one.
Yep.
Which
legs
I
flex and
think he
extend
does.
center independently to move the center of mass from lateral.
These need to go into the turn at the same time and rate.
Yep.
Okay.
A counter is maintained through transition.
Upper body stability promotes lower body mobility.
Lower body mobility, yeah, bingo.
And then the one, both skis on the snow, that's really the common thread is really geared around the 4 maneuvers: wedge turns, basic parallel, wedge Christie,
Dynamic parallel and wedge Christie.
medium radius turns. I think because he's doing more of a dynamic turn, they're going to allow him to be sometimes in the air.
So
You also covered the ankles flex.
Yeah,
I
the
can't remember how it
ankle.
goes, but about
Yeah.
the same at the same.
Yeah, both laterally and fore out and
Right.
back and forth, right? We don't have one leg that's leaking way forward, you know what I mean, in an effort to try to get more pressure to the outside ski, blah, blah, blah. We got all those things that happen with a lot of the skiers, right?
So Chuck, you were saying that he's not doing much independent flexing and extending of his legs. And I was looking at, the idea of skiing under the glass ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's doing a great job of that. There's a lot of up and down movement of his head, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't, his chest isn't turning, but he does have a lot of up and down. And could that be related to the not flexing and extending separately?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
they would.
that's
So
what-
he's
that's what
trying.
it seems
He's
like.
creating movement. He's creating a movement, which tends to kind of interrupt his timing. Right? There's a little bit of a pop there that's happening.
Right.
Right? The pop is making the timing a little bit later in his turn, even though he's really excellent at turning the tips into the snow, into the turn. It kind of happens a little bit later in the turn than we would like to probably see, ideally. Do I
I
think
think
he
he's
could do
doing
it?
a rebound turn and he's got a lot of rotary, but I think that's in his intent.
I think it's his intent too. This is where we start putting on our versatility and adaptability hats. And we say, okay, he's doing this really well. What can we change to try to make him more versatile and adaptable? How can we change the timing on him?
I think his skis need to be a little farther apart in order to allow him to maybe flex and extend separately.
Okay.
I would say earlier edge engagement.
Earlier edge engagement. I think that might be related to his ability to pressure the ski. Because when he gets to, he's finishing a turn right there, right? And he's got like a little twisting movement.
What's
But
important there, Chuck, you're correct. He's kind of starting that turn in that there. But at that particular image, you could see how his head was leading, not his feet.
Yeah.
His head and chest were already moving down the hill. And after watching the Gelly images, that's not what we were trying for that better edge control, but he's losing it because both legs are working as a monopod instead of independently.
Yeah.
And so that's a result of.
Yeah.
And
And
it's more obvious on the left turn than the right turn.
It's relatively obvious for those of us who can see it, right? But here's the point that I'm making. See how the skis are twisting? Now he's finally engaged, right? But he's not in a position where he can pressure the outside ski because he hasn't really shortened the inside ski yet, or the inside leg, right? So there's kind of a little bit of a crash. Now he starts to shorten the inside leg.
So going towards the fundamentals, I would prioritize magnitude with this guy.
You could do magnitude, or you could do, I mean, that particular doesn't speak, none of those actually speak to any particular fundamental, but the way we've been kind of describing it is maybe foot to foot pressure too.
Mhm.
Maybe we change the way he transitions, right? Instead of a big extension, or how does he absorb the pressure in the turn? Because it almost seems like he doesn't do that, right? He kind of gets all this energy and then he doesn't know what to do with it. And it kind of flings him around.
So
Is
can,
this what people call up unweighting? Is that what this is?
That's up unweighting, yeah.
So that's
But
what
he's
he's
using
doing.
the ski performance to do it, right? He's not absorbing it this way like Tom and Lenz were doing, where they're trying to figure out how to be more, let the skis go underneath them than him going over the top, right? So he's not absorbing it, he's letting it travel up and it's kind of flinging him.
But on a positive note, to go back to where we started, Chuck, his turns are more roundy, so he is definitely controlling his rate of rotation.
Yeah.
What would be interesting is to say, let's make your turns a little more carvy and let's go with more of a medium radius to see if he could do it.
Yep.
Because with his body dynamics right now, let's just say it won't be any more carvy than we're seeing.
No, this is pretty carvy. Especially when he gets down here to the bottom where it's not quite so consequential.
Where he stays more with an open turn.
Right.
Yeah, but with Shelby's point too, he's taking a lot more pressure at the end of the turn. He's not taking much at the beginning.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's that extension piece that's
Yeah.
happening at the top of the turn.
Yeah.
Right? And he doesn't know what to do with all that pressure. There's a lot
So
of
he
pressure.
floats the first third of the turn.
Yeah. And
But
then
he
it kind
does
of,
it with a lot of skill because he controls that rate of rotation. He just doesn't let the skis go crank around.
So what would you give for an exercise to change that at the top? To fix an up on weighting?
it depends. Well, I mean, it depends.
Long
You know,
leg, short leg.
So now we're into
shorten your inside leg to start it instead of popping up.
Yeah, so first thing we got to do is we got to know what his motivation is, right? Because now we're in prescription of change. Like that's more, hey, is this guy going to the bumps? Is he going to go be doing steeps? Are we doing trees today, or is it just he wants to be more pretty, right? We don't know. I mean, and I can't really steer in a direction until I have an idea of what he wants, right? So if I know that he wants to make better short radius turns, I want him to retract. But that's placing a motivation on him and not him telling me what his motivation is, right? I'd want him to track more. I want him to retract the skis or the legs and then extend to the outside leg.
Hmm.
I want both legs to come up, and then I want to extend to the outside leg, and both legs come up, extend to the outside leg.
Even if it was a short radius?
We could stay in a short radius turn.
So how would you, okay, so you can say that, but I'm just curious, like how you would deconstruct that. So I'm just saying that, like, would it be a drill or a task, or would it just be a conversation?
It would be a task.
Such as,
Hey, let's go do a retraction. Let's do some retraction turns. You ever heard of retraction turns? Let's go do some retraction turns.
yeah,
So instead of letting the skis pull you up, push you up, I want you to just let the ski legs come up underneath you. Let's go give that a try.
Don't people normally talk retraction terms in moguls or no?
Yeah,
Okay, it's a pretty new term for me.
retraction turns.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be learning a lot more about them this year.
Great.
Because they're useful everywhere.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why we want to do a retraction turn for him is so he doesn't have that crash at the end of the turn. And it allows the legs to be a piston or a shock absorber. So when all that pressure comes back up, it comes up through his legs and doesn't fling him from side to
Yep.
side, the whole body.
What do you mean? I see what you mean by flinging from side to side. What do you mean by crash at the end of the turn? I got a
Well,
little.
the problem is when he extends all the way, then all his ability to turn the ski at the top of the turn is kind of compromised because the ski's not really on the snow because he's fully extended. So when he gets to that position, oh, come on. Get past. See how his legs go up? Now he's fully extended. Now he doesn't really have the skis on the snow anymore.
Right.
And if you're going to watch, they're going to start pivoting. Right? And
Yes.
now he's got engagement. But what we learned from Lenz and from Tom is that we would like to start shortening the inside leg earlier to allow you to control how much pressure you have on the inside, the new outside ski as soon as possible. Okay? He doesn't really do that. And now he's got all this pressure at the end of the turn. Bam! See all the spray? And what's the skis making him do now? He's going back up again. Now his legs are almost fully extended. And fully extended legs can really only do one thing, which is to pivot.
Are these dynamic turns or performance?
They look like they're more dynamic.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I gotta channel the difference is that performance turns are more skiddy and dynamic turns are more carved as much as humanly possible.
So dynamic turns are harder.
Dynamic turns are faster and harder, yes.
So are you suggesting in long leg, short leg, extension, flexion, outside leg, inside leg, that in order to do his dynamic turns here, you might suggest to get more performance and have a little bit more regulation of pressure?
Yes. How do we regulate pressure?
But now you're going to make me think because I was still thinking, but I wasn't thinking what you were thinking. And now I've forgotten what I was talking about. But isn't he trying? It's about his intent. He wants to make dynamic turns.
Right.
So to do that, he's doing a pretty good job because it's not what Carve wanted, which might be a more consistent progression throughout the turn.
Right.
it's a little spiky.
Yeah.
And I think because I see him somewhat utilizing his inside leg in the turn to propel him through the completion of the turn.
Sure. I'm not, all right, this is a very skilled skier. Now we're talking about like making him a little bit more versatile and adaptable, challenging him to try it in a different way. Because that's the only way we're really going to get any kind of traction for a change with this guy. Because, you know, and he may go, you know what, I like the way I ski. Well, then we better figure something else out because otherwise the lesson's going to be a bust, right? And our
So
tip
when you-
just evaporates into the wind. And I need that tip, man. I need my beer money. So
When
I
you
got to
say
figure
make-
out what I got to do.
When you say make him more versatile and adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that implies there's a place that you're thinking his skiing might fall apart a little. Where would that be?
Well, I would probably say I wouldn't want to take these kind of turns into the bumps
Okay,
because he's in the air a lot,
okay,
right? I'm not saying he couldn't do a good job in the bumps, but I'd want the skis to be on the snow more.
right.
And I kind of just rolled through his right hand turn where his skis were completely off the snow by like several inches.
Really? I haven't seen.
Oh yeah. Let's go back to,
I saw him get light, but I didn't see him off the
I
snow.
don't think it was
This
this
is his
one.
first turn to the
That
right.
one's pretty extended though.
No,
And
I
he
do
gets-
agree with you to a point, Chuck, because there are times where that outside ski does come off the snow.
Mhm.
But the tighter stance and letting his legs work more as a monopod may be a benefit in soft snow and in the bumps.
Could be.
But if you throw him in a race course, he'd die. You
No,
let him run some gates.
he certainly wouldn't be the fastest guy around the hill, would he? Yeah, I think this is a turn here where he gets kind of vaulted. Yep, he's vaulted.
His skis are off the snow. I just can't see.
It's mostly the outside ski that goes versus the inside. I think what's important is this particular frame. Look how far into the fall line and beyond he is before his body shape infers he is starting to put weight on that outside ski.
Okay, I see that.
I mean, look, trust me, I'm not implying that he's a terrible skier. This guy's a good freaking skier.
The guy's a good skier.
We're just
And
trying.
if he wants to get better, that's where we're at.
You just paid $1,200 for a private lesson to make him better. I'm going to make him better. Or make him more versatile and adaptable. Maybe our
Depending on
ideas
his
and retreats.
definition of better.
Yeah.
So what he's really working on, Chuck, is to keep his feet glued together. That's going to make him better.
That's going to make him better. I've got a band for that. We could put a
That's
band,
his
tape
opinion.
his legs together.
But there it is again. Look how deep in the turn he is before he starts to get weight on that outside ski. He's past the fall line here.
Most of his engagement is actually past the fall line.
Yep. He gets definite pressure spikes at the end of the turn.
And that's why I like where Kelby was going, which is that idea of pressure management. Right? How can we get the skis on the snow so they can get more action happening high in the turn so it doesn't happen all at the bottom of the turn? Oh, I think this might be the one that I saw where he gets a little vaulted. It goes up and then.
So Chuck, that you mentioned having him do retraction turns, and the thing that I think about when you do that is when you're doing an extension turn, it takes much longer to get your skis engaged. And when you do a retraction turn, you can get them engaged and move the weight to your outside ski much earlier and faster.
Yes, more deliberately.
Yeah, and it
See,
happens a
the-
lot faster because you don't have that up-down motion. It's just lateral.
Yep, 100%.
So as far as fundamentals, is this magnitude or foot to foot?
You could
Both.
attack either of them.
Oh, all right.
You could talk either of them. We could talk about it. We could talk about why we're doing long leg, short leg, in terms of how can we manage the things that are happening in the turn, so that we're not getting all this stuff happening at the end of the turn. Because there's a lot of snow. I mean, there's some engagement that's early there, but a lot of the engagement happens late.
Yeah, totally.
So early on, Chuck had asked a question, what would you do to help this individual out, inferring that he wanted to get better by our definition of getting better? And somebody had brought up work on the long leg, short leg. That's awesome. But to go all the way back, what can we do with this individual if he is trying to get better based on what we consider better skiing? And the concept is there, but what can you have him do to work on that long leg, short leg? Does that make sense? Apparently not.
Yeah, Mike, I cheated, but
That's
looked-
okay. It's okay to cheat.
So I looked up, I just threw into the chat a video of Tom Gelly breaking down, like deconstructing a retraction turn. And he actually like shows there's a retraction part and then an edge change staying low and then an extension of the outside leg.
Mm-hmm.
So you could break it down into some phases. You could say do a retraction turn, but you could have him focus just on the, certain breakdown that retraction turn in segments. So he has you then extend the leg and into extension after you keep a low edge change and then resist it. So you could hold that there longer so you feel it maybe.
Yep. And for him, it's going to be really tough because he doesn't do his edge change until he extends.
Right.
So can he stay short and do an edge change?
That would be a way to challenge him and maybe put it, like someone said earlier, in a medium radius turn too, so it's not so short, so he can really feel it and then bring it back into a short radius turn.
I thought this is just me talking, you can, throw it out, but I thought it would be really interesting to see if he could do an outside ski turn where the transition to the outside ski is at or just before transition, and can he maintain a low body stance as he does it? Do it without extending, forcing him to use his legs more. As a thought.
So,
And you can go ahead and throw it out if you want.
So maybe at his level of skiing, you might want to try to, with your newfound knowledge that we got earlier in today's episode, you can teach him how to turn with his hip to the snow.
Maybe that would be a fun task.
That would definitely challenge him. Can you imagine doing that with your feet that close together?
The other thing, Mike, to your point, what does he want to do to get better? And he looks like a mogul skier. And I would say, you don't even have to use the word retraction. Say, let's go ski moguls and do them with a glass ceiling where our head doesn't move up and down. And you really can't do that without doing retraction turns. Everybody likes that idea, I can tell.
I agree with you, Scott. To me, he looks like a mogul skier in that.
Yeah.
I would challenge him in the moguls with his retraction turn to have him retracted by the time he gets to the top of the mogul, but not have him extend until he's approaching the fall line.
Which is exactly
Delay
what that
his
glass
extension.
ceiling does. That's exactly what the glass ceiling does. Keeps you small at the top and your head doesn't pop up at the top. It's got to stay there and you extend down.
That's the wrong video.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Was that a Baloo video?
It was, but it's not the one I'm looking for.
I don't know. It's just a thought. So you guys' thoughts are great, and I just threw one in there, and feel free to toss it.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
honestly, we could achieve this also through edging, right? I mean, there's no magic sauce to. It seems pretty obvious that we're going to have to do a ski to ski pressure. It's not that obvious, right? We could have talked about how can we achieve higher edge angles.
I think we should put him on teleskis because that radical vertical movement he has, it basically allow him to leave teeth marks between the tips of the skis.
Right. All
He'd
right.
kind of go without the skis.
So this is Andreas Spittle, and he's like amazing. But again, he's really thinking about there's your transition, then extension, right? There is a definitive retraction piece that's happening, and it's happening at the top of the turn. And then he extends into the turn. Now he's getting a little bit more airborne, but this might be an overkill solution, but that's what we'd like to see him do.
Like to see myself do that.
All you gotta be, honestly, the first time I ever saw that drill what Demelza Clay just showed us, right? That video that we did. First person I ever saw this was through projected projections, and it was Andreas Spittle who was doing that drill. He was basically just laying down on his side, standing on the snow, just retracting one leg until he finally has his hip on the snow. I'm trying to find like a legitimate, I can't find the one with Baloo. He had one, didn't he? Mike, he had one that was like talked about. I know he does them in these medium turns.
I thought he did, or I remember seeing something on it. I don't know if it was in conjunction with something else, though.
Might have been. I mean, I've seen so damn many videos now, but
Yeah, like you, they're all kind of blend together after a while.
they do, right? That's more of a retraction style turn there because he's actively trying to stay low so that he can engage the skis higher in the arc.
Yeah, but did you notice how his shoulders were over his skis, unlike our current guinea pig?
Right. Are you talking about at the end of the turn or at the beginning of the turn, like right there?
Yeah, at the end of the turn, as he's initiating the turn, our guinea pig, the shoulders tend to lead the ski. Here, his shoulders tend to be over the skis and his body goes with the ski instead of leading it.
Yeah, and he's on his edge way before the fall line where the other guy was hitting it late.
Yeah.
And not only is he on his edge, but look how early he gets. His body implies that he's getting weight on that outside ski. See, it's definitely before the fall line when you can see his body shape inferring there's weight on that outside ski.
Yeah.
He's not thinking about shortening the inside leg. It's because the inside leg's already pretty short. Think about extending the outside leg.
Is that a short joke for Jonathan?
He's not short. I'll probably have to go in front of him again to some.
He's shorter than
us,
you.
both of us will probably have to. You know, in that whole group, I think there wasn't anybody that was nearly as short as they were. Everybody was
Nope.
at least 6 feet tall in that group. And then you got Ben and Jonathan there, which are like 5'8" combined.
And you know, they will tell you that for us tall people, when you do things correctly, it looks really, really impressive. But when you don't, it's really, really obvious.
I think that's a tall joke.
That's a tall inference, yes.
Yes. All right. Any questions on this? Because we're kind of coming towards the end. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Or a different look for our victim here? Shorter poles, maybe? I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Just one, Chuck. I think it was your first video, or excuse me, the first blurb in the newsletter you put out. It was talking about the proteges.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we didn't
I
talk about that, did we?
guess, you know, you could consider Chuck and maybe even me as mentors, and you guys are proteges out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought
Just
that
a
was
thought.
I thought that was a really interesting article. I teach a lot of kids, so I have to always kind of weigh that fine line of. I always want. I mean, when I teach adults, there's always one or two people that end up standing out, right? I mean, that's just the nature of the game. You're gonna have one or two that are like, they're really getting it. They really understand what you're trying to do. They're really trying to apply it, and I don't try to like too often point them out, but I always want to use something as an example. When I'm teaching kids, it's a little bit more difficult, right? And I just wanted to kind of get your guys' gauge on that about, when would that be a useful tactic to use in a lesson, or we're picking on one person to kind of be the protege.
It really depends on the kids.
Yeah. Depends on the group dynamic too, right?
Yep. I know when my daughter was in lessons, because she knew what I would, did, and I would I'd go out and ski with her a lot. There were times where sometimes the instructors would ask her to lead the class and do things for the class a lot. And in that scenario, that worked really, really well.
And then I've had others that are like, hell no.
Not just no, but hell no.
Not no. No, you're not. No, I don't want to,
Yeah,
especially teenage girls, they're not going to be very interested in that.
but I think pairing kids up, or kids or adults, is a way of utilizing those
There we go.
proteges that are really skilled by either having, one follow the other and give them feedback, or demoing, using them as demos.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways that you can take these really, students that get it and use them as models.
100%. And this is really an effective way to do our peers too, isn't it?
Yep. Chuck, when I read that article, it reminded me of when Chris Rogers came to Snow Creek and, did our stuff, when we had the day where we had both skiers and snowboarders. He basically pairs up and said, okay, you guys are going to watch each other, figure out what you're going to work on, and then go from there. So that's about the same thing we did. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was one of the things he was really good at, was he was like, hey, let's stay loosey-goosey on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep the topic. He ran the topic without being, these are the things. Here's the 5 items we need to cover, right? He wasn't interested in that. It's like, here's the overall topic. Here's the things we want to kind of look at. How can we orchestrate a plan that's going to allow everybody to, allow everybody to participate and get into a learning environment, right? And contribute in the learning environment. And now, that's why he's a national team member, right?
Yep.
Right? Because he was really good at that. And it was like, he kept the clinic really loose and allowed it to develop itself. I really thought that was nice.
Absolutely.
All right, since we got a little bit of time, we can stare at another skier. I can't play right now.
When you open them up, there were all these LCs on Kate's, and I was like, let's not go to the LCs, man. Don't go to the LCs.
They're the lower cost ones, right?
They're me. I recognize my pink jacket and everything. Oh, look, I bet I'm in this class because there's Saskia.
Yeah. So what are we noticing about this skier? Well, I think it's TK, isn't it? Tan jacket.
It says BP.
BP.
Yeah, I don't know who this is. There's tan jacket BP. And yeah.
All right, cool. So we can say whatever we want.
Right. What I notice is he really needs to work on counter between his turns. He's definitely doesn't have enough upper body, lower body separation.
Cool. So that speaks to a...
Well, counter in your turns, that's common thread.
Yeah, it's one of those common threads, right?
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed kind of right off the bat is that both skis don't turn simultaneously into the turns.
That's a common thread.
That's a
And
common
his
thread.
turns are mostly skidded.
His turns are mostly skidded. He tends to push his skis out.
And he's more inclined than creating angles.
Back and inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's definitely more on the back of his skis, which you
And
can
he's
really see from his angles, his ankle angles, compared to where his rear end is. You can tell he's really on the back.
Yeah, so if we go back to that little chart, I mean, we could say, hey, where is the snow coming off, right?
Yeah, really
Coming off towards the back, kind of underneath the binding and towards the back, right?
I don't see much separation of leg extension and flex either.
No.
No.
No. That might be a concept foreign to him too, right?
Yeah.
How do we move the center of mass from laterally through flexion and extension? He thinks all he's got to do is just push the skis out. What else do we notice?
Ankle angles don't match.
Cool. Any particular time that they do that?
Right in the turn. Right at the
Yeah.
top of the turn.
Right as he's turning?
I was going to say the bottom of the turn, so now I don't know who's right.
Yeah, I think they're not terrible at the top of the turn, but as pressure builds, he's trying to get more grip on the outside leg, so he's trying to do that by pushing the inside leg forward, right?
Or I was going to say, it looks to me like he's really extending that outside leg and pushing it away from him.
Right. Well, he's doing that on every turn.
Oh, right. And then the inside leg, the knee bends, the ski goes forward.
Right.
I'm not sure, I may have missed it, but did anybody bring up what's happening with the counter through transition?
That was the first thing I said.
He doesn't have much separation at all.
No.
And so it's hard to have counter through transition if you don't have counter through transition.
And what about the ankle angles?
We did notice that they're changing. Initiation, they seem to be fairly similar, and then they kind of change halfway through the turn.
Well, that'll teach me to get up and go get something to drink.
Yep.
You did good though, Mike. You saw everything we saw.
You know, you guys have been training me well.
I mean, we didn't speak to upper body stability and lower body mobility because his upper body is definitely initiating the turns. And then, but we can say that both skis are staying on the snow.
Yes.
Right? They may not be pointed the same direction all the time, but he's making a
They
valiant
stay
effort.
on the snow. That's a positive.
That's a positive, right?
And he seems to be in control.
He seems to be in control. So this is more of that, a kind of apostrophe turn, isn't it? Quick turn at the top and a long finish. Cool. Well, since we have done a really good job of what is he doing well? And
Keeping his
staying
skis on the
feet
snow,
doesn't
skiing
count.
in control.
He's skiing in
Yeah.
control.
His clothes seem to fit.
Yes. His outfit matches really well.
Yes.
There,
Well, you left it pretty wide open there. What's he doing well, Chuck? You know, he doesn't use his poles much, so he'll be able to get a better resale at the end of the season.
You know, he does keep his hands pretty much in stable position. I think that's good.
I do like that. He's trying to make an effort, isn't he, to stabilize the upper body?
Yep.
In kind of a very rigid way, which is we're all guilty of, including
You know,
you,
he's
Laura.
got just enough neculation to infer that his goggles are aiming mostly downhill.
Well, that's where the danger is, isn't it?
His also his skis, I mean, I know they're not always the same, pointing the same direction, but they're about the same right distance apart.
They do remain a specific distance, don't they? They don't really get wider or narrower, do they?
Yeah.
That's actually a good thing.
Yep.
And if he was trying to put his hips on the snow, he's got his inside edge angle is different from the outside edge angle.
Yes.
Also, I think I know this guy and he's a pretty nice guy and that counts for something.
No, it doesn't.
Only if he buys you after dinner, after ski day drinks.
No, I don't need that.
You don't need
I'm a
that?
married woman.
I'm not going to go there.
No, don't.
So anyway, so how would we, with all the myriad of things that we pointed out, the good becoming the bad, blah, blah, blah. This guy is obviously working on his level 2. What would be, and he's doing a basic parallel, which is probably what that means. Tan jacket BP, basic parallel, or his name is Brian Patterson or something, I don't know. But he's making basic parallels. What would we want to change so that he could pass his level 2 exam, basic parallel exam?
He's got to change a fair amount to do that.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I think starting with something you said, Chuck, that getting him to steer the skis together at the beginning of the turn, so that he's starting that turn right. And
You know,
then
that's one of the things that they really emphasize in level 2 is your ability to turn your legs underneath a stable upper body.
Yep.
And that's where people fail in the level 2 is
That's where I
level one,
was
you can
going to
get
go.
away with you can get away with a certain amount of swishiness, right? Use your ass, your cheeks, or whatever, or use your upper body to start to turn. When you're getting into level 2, you really need to start exploring the ability to rotate your legs out independently from the upper body.
So from a common thread perspective, for that to happen, he really needs to maintain his counter through transition.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think
So what
he's,
fundamentals could you use to help him do that? There's more than one, by the
I
way.
would work on exercises like side slip, pivot slips kind of thing to get him facing downhill and just rotating his skis.
Yeah.
yep, those are simple.
Hockey
else?
slides.
Hockey stops, yeah.
Hockey slides are always
Yeah.
they're always a fan favorite.
Well, that's because they teach you how to do everything.
Hockey slides with a javelin.
Hmm.
I'm not saying he could do it, but it might be worth a try.
Hmm.
And it might be an understanding issue. Does this guy actually know what he's doing? Right? He might go, I'm turning my legs. See, they're pointed different directions. Because I think he's trying to make an honest effort about it, but he's struggling still.
Well, you could even do it statically with him, have him take his skis off,
Mhm.
point his shoulders and plant his poles facing downhill, and then just have him turn his toes so they point from one side of the trail to the other.
Mhm. I'm gonna get that note.
Oh, by the way, what's another thing that we're supposed to be doing in basic parallels? That would be an automatic.
Functional
He's not
pole
doing
plant.
a functional pole plant. You weren't supposed to speak that, Mike. That's what he does once in a while. A
How did you
functional.
Well,
know
then
that's what he
shut
was
me
looking
up.
for?
Huh?
I was curious how Mike knew that's what you were looking for, because there was a
Mike,
lot of
Elby.
things you could.
Go ahead.
Well, sometimes Chuck and I are on the same wavelength. I know you
Yeah.
guys find that hard to believe, but occasionally we are.
Occasionally, we come from different spectrums. I don't think I like his spectrum, and I don't think he likes mine.
Well, I know
No,
he
right, he's
doesn't
not
like
planting
mine,
poles
and
at
the
all.
jury's still open on my side.
Right. I mean,
So are you saying that you're both on the spectrum?
we're spectrum oriented. Yes, I'm pretty sure. Anyway,
I'm-
but yeah, the point is that he does not have a pole plant at all. He doesn't even have a functional, much less a functional one, right? That's directing him moving down the hill or anything like that. One of the other things I do notice is there's kind of a stepping issue. He has a little bit of a, he steps very deliberately from one turn to the other instead of kind of allowing this thing to happen naturally through the transition. And that's why he turns so quickly, but that's also an upper body issue.
So taking those things into consideration, what might be interesting for this individual to try is dragging the outside pole in the snow hard enough it leaves a trench, and to have that pole start to engage the snow at transition,
Yeah.
which will set his body up where he needs to be for the turns, but will also set his body up for a pole touch as well.
Well, what about dragging both poles? Because then that kind of keeps him
You know
with
what?
his body down the hill, and he's got to rotate the legs under a
Yeah.
stable upper body.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I like whiskers or swords or whatever you want to call it. I love that drill.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a fantastic drill. But I'm not objecting to what Mike's saying. It says he's just kind of focusing more on the outside part of it, which he has to create angles in order to reach down to create that trench, right? Which is almost forces him to start using his legs.
And I didn't want to use the both poles because he's already using that inside pole too much.
Well, yeah.
That was the only reason, Rebecca, but it will work, especially if you give him a downhill focus.
Cool. All right, it's 8:35 my time, 7:35 Western,
Yep.
4:20 in the afternoon where Joel's at, I'm sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Mike,
Thanks.
All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me join you guys. This was awesome.
And I'm gonna be working on a guest for next week. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we'll see you at Okemo on Tuesday.
I'm going to try to make it because well, I'll be actually driving out west, so I'll probably be joining that group for sure. I'm looking forward to it. I'm always looking for different things to do in teaching.
All right. Stay cool, everyone.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
have you been going to the Vail stuff?
No, because I wasn't